Yes, so I started it on Zoom, but I was looking for an option to pause it, but it did not give me option to pause it. So like when clicked on stop, so it just stopped. So I guess what I'll do is when we like at 5:45, I'll are you on mute? I guess.
And yes, I am.
Okay, so what we will do is like at 5:45 when we start the webinar like at 5:55
Hmm.
or maybe a couple of minutes before the program,
Yeah.
then I'll get it on the live and then I'll because then I'd have to stop it because when I stopped it, I think when we start webinar, then it gives me an option to stop and resume
Okay.
or pause or resume.
Oh, is it my line because it's breaking up? Hey, stop! Get out of the internet. No, I think Asim is you. You were
I can hear you. Okay.
you could hear me, but at some point you were stalled. Like, hey Nathan,
Good evening.
good evening. How
Good
are you?
evening, Nathan.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, I'm doing well. How are you all?
That's good. We are doing fine too.
Good.
Good.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi.
Assalamualaikum. Hello, everyone.
So we have our Imam Zahid. He's a presenter, Nathan, and Imam Zahid. This is Mr. Nathan from Peace River.
Hi there.
Hi, how are you, Nathan?
Good. How are you tonight?
I'm fine, thank you.
Good.
Good evening, Ty.
Hello.
So I think, am I on mute? Probably not. I think we have almost half of the panel now. We wanted to wait when all the others join, then maybe we can do a quick round of introduction. But then in the meantime, yes, you can keep the conversation going if you have not. I'm not sure whether all of you have met Ty. Ty is well, maybe Ty, you can. If I ask you to do that, then probably you might have to do it again.
Hello, I'm Ty.
That's right. Maybe when everybody joins, you might need probably a little bit more for people to know you better. But
All right.
maybe let's wait until all the others join, and then maybe we just take some 5-10 minutes to do that. So once everybody joins, and then we do just a quick small introduction. If you need to maybe duck out for 5 minutes or so, you can just put yourself on mute or maybe get off camera and then maybe get back in about 5 minutes to time. But we have to let everybody come and then make sure that everybody's system is working well and we are all good to go.
Yeah, let's wait for Rob as well, like the moderator,
Yeah.
so that he also like.
Hi, good evening, everybody.
Oh, it looks as if we didn't respond to you. Hi, good evening. We are all on mute, so
Hi, Carol. Hi, Ty. Hi, Imam Zahid.
Hello.
Hi, Nathan. My name is Bashir Islam, and I'm one of the volunteers with the team. I'm sure you've been in communication with Asim and Malik most of the time, but I'm one of their assistants. How's weather up north?
It's quite nice, actually.
Yeah, we're actually enjoying, some of the best days of December, if I can remember past 10, 15 years.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, well, I mean, we feel Calgary just gets Chinook, and in the middle of winter, we can get some really nice summer days. We had a similar event a few days ago for Northwest Territories, and technically speaking, it went really well. So hopefully, I am actually surprised. Internet connection in some of the smaller towns is actually amazing. It's even better than what we get here in Calgary.
Yeah, that's it. Probably not surprising because the technology would be the same. If the only thing
Well,
is
actually newer.
if you don't have any of
think
the good players.
I think the smaller towns are getting the newest top of the line technology. So
Okay.
plus, I think their number of subscribers is probably not as high as what we get here.
Hmm.
Brother Malik, you would mind contacting Imam Qasim?
Oh, okay. He's not here.
Rob should be joining any minute. I just called him, so he should be joining any minute. So both are indigenous speakers. Their phones, one of them's phone is off, and the other one is not responding. So yeah, fingers crossed.
Hi, Rob.
Good evening, Rob.
Hello. How's everybody this evening?
Great, great. We're just having one of the best December days.
It's the same up here, yes.
Brothers, who you want to test the screen share? Brother Zur, I think you are on mute. So you want to test the screen sharing?
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Okay, so whilst he's testing the screen share, I think we can, as a way of testing everything, we can see everyone. The video is working fine. So as a means of quick introduction, maybe 1 minute or so, just if you tell the other panelists who you are, and then we can go ahead. My name is Malik Ajiman. I am one of the organizers for this conference. So I think that is it. And yeah, we're glad to have everyone, each and every one of you on the panel for today.
So we can start from
the top.
Carol, from the top left, Carol.
Hi, my name is Marilyn Carroll, and I'm in ministry with the United Church of Canada. I live in Dawson Creek and have for a long time, but have worked and continue to have connections with Alberta. So I'm kind of a cross-border person.
So as you took the thing, so we don't know the left to right where that.
Yeah. So okay. I'll do. I'll go with myself. So my name is Asem. You may have you all of you have know me. I'll be just doing the back end, running the show from the back end, and you will not be seeing me up once the program goes live. So yeah, that's about me. So I think next, Brother Malik, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I have already introduced myself, so maybe we'll go to Imam.
Okay, so
Zahid.
let's go to Imam Zahid. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. My name is Zahid Abid. I am one of the imams here at Baitul Noor Mosque in Calgary. And yeah, looking forward to tonight's program. Thank you.
So next is Brother Bashir.
Oh, okay.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Bashir Islam, and I'm just a volunteer with the team. I won't be speaking, and you probably won't see me once the conference starts. So everybody, good evening, and have a great conference.
So next we have Nathan.
Hey everyone, my name's Nathan Freed. I am the lead pastor at First Baptist Church here in Peace River, and I've been in the community a little over 5 years now.
Okay. So next is Ty.
Hi, I'm Ty Barrett. Right now I'm the branch president for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Peace River, our little branch there. And this will be the second conference I've been involved with.
Thank you, Ty. So next is Rob, our moderator.
Hello, my name is Robert Brown. I'm the 5-year managing editor of the Dawson Creek Mirror, and this is my second conference, and spent most of my time in Southern Alberta and certainly Western Canada the last 25 years doing journalism.
Thanks, Ty. So good evening, Wanda. We are just going through a 1-minute round of introduction, like a small introduction, so that all the panelists know each other. So please go ahead and just give you a brief introduction of yourself, please.
Sure. Wanda Lauren from Peace River, Alberta. I've been involved with moderating the World Religions Conference up until this point, and today I get to say a few words. Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Wanda. So next we have Brother Herman Manigans from the Piikani Nation. Herman, please introduce yourself, unmute, and yeah, please, just give a brief intro. You're on mute, Herman. Yeah. So now we can see you, but yeah, just unmute. Let me send you a request to unmute. Do you see the screen? Yeah, just tap on the unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, you're good.
Okay.
Oh no, I think
Yeah,
you
my name is
muted again.
Herman Menigan. What?
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah.
Can you hear?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hello?
Please go ahead.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we
My
can
name is,
hear you.
Herman
Please go
Menigan.
ahead.
Okay, yeah, I'm from the Piikani Nation. Glad to meet you all.
Thank you, Herman. So next we have Zahur. He will also be, bro, so you're on mute by.
Hello everyone. I will be in the background. You won't see me. I will just running the PowerPoint presentation.
Thank you. So yeah, so with this, I think we have covered everyone. So now over to Brother Malik.
Just
Herman, sorry, go
so
ahead. Sorry.
the quick format, as you all know, has been communicated. So Rob will be the moderator. So the program will start, and then I think the most important part, everybody will have the time allotted to do their presentation uninterrupted. And then, of course, Rob has a big task of introducing every speaker, and we have a lot of us here. So as he goes along, so he will do that. And then once all the presentations are done, there will be a question and answer session. So there will be our participants, you use the QA icon at the bottom of the screen to send their questions. So when they send the questions, all the panelists, everyone is going to see it, but we ask that you don't just pick any of the questions to answer. So during the question period, Rob will tally all the questions and decide on who he asked the question to. Of course, sometimes the audience can also indicate whether the question is for a specific presenter or for multiple presenters. So as I think that will be the general rule in here. I don't think there is anything else more. So we have the panelists as we have some that are core presenters and some are in here as special guests. So if you are a special guest, if a question comes and you want to chime in, that is fine, but you are not required to answer. So the questions might be directed to the panelists. And if you want to chime in, of course, let the moderator know, raise up your hand or something, and you want to chime in, that is it. But you are not required to if you are not part of the core the panel representing one of the faiths that we've selected. So if there is any question, if anybody has question or comment, otherwise it's social time.
Yeah, so just one more thing I'll add is that, just before, right now we are in the practice session. So whatever we are saying, stays here with us, and nobody is going to hear that outside of this room. So at 6 p.m. or maybe at 5:58, I'll say that, now we are live. So this means that everyone on the attendee side, they will be able to see us and hear us. And at the same time, we're going to be broadcasting this event on YouTube as well. So yeah, and then yeah, that's it for now from my side. And Rob, if you could, just during the conference, if you could remind attendees how they can send the questions, right? Because some of them might be joining for the first time, so you can advise them, or how to send a question. Like there's a Q&A, box at the or option at the bottom, so they can just type in their question there. Thank you.
Will do.
So, Brother Malik, I've shared the YouTube link with you. You can go ahead.
Yeah, that is good. So anybody that needs it.
Herman, any idea where Dr. Reg would be? I'm not able to contact him right now.
No, I haven't heard of him lately
Okay.
since the
Okay.
last time we spoke.
Okay, I'll call him. Maybe he might be running a little late. So in case, okay, yeah, let's talk about that one later. So in 1 minute, I'll start the webinar. So it's 5:56. So in 1 minute, I will start. And but yeah, we will actually start the program at 6, but it's just like the 3 minutes question.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm just gonna be starting the webinar. So Rob, we will start in 3 minutes. We are going live, but we will actually start the program at 6, and probably this is the last time you will hear from me until the end of the program. So yeah, best of luck.
Oh my God. Eddie, my video stopped. Video. Is it not stop video?
So Rob, I think we can start now.
Okay. Hello, good evening, and welcome. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Peace and blessings of God be on you. I am Malik Ajman. On behalf of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat, I want to welcome you all to the first virtual World Religions Conference for Northern Alberta and Dawson Creek. We have held in-person World Religions Conferences over the last 5 years at Peace River, Dawson Creek, and Grand Prairie. This year, we are holding a virtual conference as a result of COVID-19, without having to cancel the program altogether. We are extremely excited having you join the webinar in discussing global pandemic. Is faith at odds with science? Let's listen to what the faith leaders on the panel think, and please submit your questions as you listen to the presentations. The format for the program is as follows. Event is chaired by a moderator whom I will introduce shortly. Presenters and special guests will share their perspective on the topic uninterrupted, followed by a question and answer session. You can send your questions to the moderator during the presentation using the QA tab on your screen at the bottom of your screen. The moderator collates the questions and direct the question to either a specific user, a specific presenter, or all the presenters. Program concludes with closing remarks and a call for a short prayer for everyone affected or touched by the pandemic. The moderator for this evening is Rob Brown. Rob Brown is the managing editor for Dawson Creek Mirror. Rob has more than 20 awards for news and entertainment writing, photography, layout design at newspapers throughout Western Canada. He is the managing editor of the Dawson Creek Mirror. Rob was at one time, without question, Canada's most prolific writer and part of the exclusive club who has filed more than 100,000 news stories, 10,000 news stories, written more than 3,000 works of poetry, and he has produced 10 original stage plays across Western Canada. Rob Brown is a 2005 Alberta Centennial Citizen of the Year, the 2017 Cultural Ambassador for Northern British Columbia, and was British Columbia's only News Media Canada Bronze Quill 2019 recipient for 20 plus years in journalism. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in handing over the program, the control of the program, to your moderator, Rob Brown.
Hello. After that intro, it's a bit of a letdown now for me, I'm sure. But what a disorienting time we live in, for sure. We're all here in our little boxes. Last time when we did this, it was a great social gathering, and there was an exchange of ideas and thoughts. And it's a different time now. But one thing about faith is that it perseveres. And here we are at the Northern Alberta Dawson Creek Annual World Religions Conference. Global pandemic, is faith at odds with science? If you do see me looking down, it's not that I'm checking messages. I'm just checking the agenda here and making sure it's in sync with my paper one as well. But after that, obviously there's questions. Anybody that is watching, part of the moderation, but or the panel. But there's the Q&A right down at your bottom in the chat. Fire them into there. Everyone's gonna see exactly what you're asking. And then if you do have questions for certain panelists based on what they said or your thoughts already, feel free to let us know and let me know which way we should direct the question and moderate, so to speak. That being said, I'm just making sure everything's lined up with me. Now you have Kaleem Ahmed with an introduction, I do believe.
Hello. Hi, Rob.
Hi, Rob, I think you missed the recitation part. I think we have to start from the recitation segment. So it's going to be Imam Qasim doing the recitation, and then
oh, did I jump? Yeah, my paper copy doesn't have that. So yes, absolutely. We have the recitation before we have the introduction. So sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. May the peace and blessings of Allah be upon you all. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم تبارك الذي بيده الملك وهو على كل شيء قدير الذي خلق الموت والحياة ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا وهو العزيز الغفور الذي خلق 7 سماوات طباقا ما ترى في خلق الرحمن من تفاوت فارجع البصر هل ترى من فطور ثم ارجع البصر كرتين ينقلب إليك البصر خاسئا وهو حسير. The following is an English rendering of the Arabic text recited before you, taken from chapter 67, verses 1 to 5 of the Holy Quran. In the name of Allah, the Gracious, the Merciful. Blessed is he in whose hand is the kingdom, and he has power over all things, who has created death and life that he might try you, which of you is best in deeds. And he is the mighty, the most forgiving, who has created 7 heavens in harmony. No incongruity canst thou see in the creation of the gracious God. Then look again. Seest thou any flaw? Aye, look again, and yet again. Thy sight will only return unto thee confused and fatigued. Thank you very much.
All right. And now we have the introduction from Kaleem Ahmed.
Thank you, Rob. Respected moderator, honorable dignitaries, learned scholars, faith leaders, elders, and friends. I will take a few moments to provide a brief introduction of Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat and the World Religions Conference. The community was initiated under the divine guidance by Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad of Qadian in India in 1889. The Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat is an international revival movement within Islam, having its members in over 200 countries. Some key Islamic teachings and concepts practiced by Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat are that all human beings are created equal, irrespective of race, color, creed, or gender. Only those are better who are more conscious of their Creator and act accordingly. However, it is God's prerogative to decide. Life is a chance to recognize the Creator. Death makes us meet our Lord and face the judgment day. Therefore, we need to be watchful of our acts in this world. Peaceful coexistence in this world is fundamental and over and above any religious beliefs. The holy founder of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, may peace be on him, writes in one of his books that God has established me upon the utmost pristine principles which are beneficial to humanity. God has informed me that of the religions which have spread and are firmly established in the world through prophets, holding sway over a part of the world and achieving survival and long life, none were false in their origin. Nor was any of those prophets false, because it is the eternal practice of the Creator that false prophets who lies against God never prosper. The Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat categorically rejects all forms of extremism. The founder of the community, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, the promised Messiah and Mahdi, may peace be on him, declared that extremism and an aggressive jihad with the sword has no place in Islam. The best way to defend Islam is through the intellectual jihad with the pen. To this end, Hazrat Ahmad, may peace be on him, penned over 80 books and thousands of letters, delivered hundreds of lectures, and engaged in scores of public debates. The motto of the community is love for all, hatred for none. The World Religions Conference is an opportunity to exchange ideas and explore topical issues in a spirit of mutual respect. This was so envisioned by the holy founder of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat over a century ago. We affirm the value of interfaith interactions for enriching our awareness of the divine being in this world. In Canada, these symposia and conferences are being held for over 4 decades. This is the 10th such event in the Northern Alberta. Although we missed traveling to the Grand Prairie, Peace River, and Dawson Creek this year and seeing our friends in person, but we are happy and thankful to God that the technology has enabled us to connect again, and we look forward to an engaging and enlightening evening. With this, I conclude my presentation.
Awesome. Thank you, Kaleem. Now we have a guest message who's going to be on the 5-minute clock. And I imagine just because we're in virtual world, we can just mute you at 5 minutes if you're going over. Of course, we won't do that. But up first is Wanda Lauren. And Wanda is a former counselor and a retired grade 3 teacher in Peace River. She takes great pleasure in being involved in community gardens in her town of Peace River, and alternative energy promotion in the region. Her greatest joy is getting together with her ever-growing family, 3 daughters and 7 grandchildren, and her greatest strength comes from faith in God. Wanda is very pleased to have been invited again to participate in the World Religions Conference to promote peace and understanding amongst people. Wanda.
Sorry, I guess I was muted. Thank you very much. And I want to thank the organizers. It's sad not to see everybody in person again, but I'm glad that they were able to use technology to bring us together on these topics that are so interesting. So I'm talking today on this theme from a perspective of environmentalism, and also from my perspective on faith. And so just from the perspective of a lay person, this is where my words are coming from. So most religions and faiths of the world have a stewardship of the earth creed. And I would like to relate our human want and need to care for all living things on this earth and religious faith, and how that ties into this terrible pandemic that we are living through right now. So the kingdom of God that Jesus proclaims represents a new order, and it's not governed by might, but it's governed by forgiveness. And yet those invested in the present order, those that are lured by the temptations of wealth, status, and power, and those that rule us right now, will resist this kingdom. because it spells an end to what they know and love, or at least have grown accustomed to. So Jesus coming through to establish the rule of peace brings division. So even amongst families and relationships and communities, there is going to be division. And how is this relevant to us? I feel that we have a present order, that we are lured into following, and it is causing us turmoil. We, our friends, families, neighbors, I think that everyone can agree that the present order that we support in Canada and in the industrialized world is one of incredible individual comfort and ease. And we expect this, we feel entitled to it. We have vehicles and spacious homes and vacations and activities in buildings like arenas and dance studios and swimming pools and gyms. And we begin to feel put upon if those luxuries are constrained. If the airport is shut down because of extreme weather, or the dishwasher is kaput, we feel like the world is conspiring against us. The order of the world is disrupted until our creature comforts are returned to normal. So we believe that the air travel, the jet boat races, the restaurant meals, the road trips, and our global food network are all deserved and integral parts of our lives. So we need to step back from those things that we feel entitled to and look at this change that is coming, and how will that impact our comforts of life. So Jesus wants his followers, he warns us that these problems that are plaguing society will turn family against each other. It will cause rifts between neighbors and friends. And Jesus says, well, we're going to face these disruptions. And can we see those disruptions right now? And I'd say yes. The Gen Ys, the millennials, and the Generation Xers, and all those teenagers today, they are decidedly against us, because they're the ones who are going to be living in the world when the weather goes ballistic. And they will be alive when the oceans start to flood the major cities along the coasts. And they're going to be alive when there are forced evacuations of billions of people globally as the heat gets turned up. And they're going to be around when there are massive species extinctions. They are fighting for their lives against their families, their governments, their communities. And so then when I think about this pandemic, I realize every 5 to 10 years lately, we've had pandemics. We've had cholera, we've had AIDS, we've had H1N1, we've had Ebola, SARS, and now COVID. And so from the point of view of youth, the disruption is well underway. We're in it. And so I don't know that back in the time of Jesus that they thought about stewardship of the earth, because it was definitely not their problem. There were only about 45 million people in the entire Roman Empire, which is about the size of the country of Liechtenstein right now. So that society of that day was not worried about looking after the planet species or any other species other than themselves. But we have multiplied in number. We are over 7 billion and counting, and we have taken over the world. And this is where Christians looking after people collides with Christians looking after the planet. There is no planet B. The impact of 7 billion people on our environment is huge. And so stewardship of the earth in the Old Testament is pretty important to us at this point in time. So the pandemic, which comes from us invading the wilds, it's necessary for us to address this. And the stewardship of our ecosystems is really important to us right now. So as we look at species extinctions,
that's 5 for sure.
Oh dear,
Yep.
That's 5?
Yep, you bet.
You know what? I'll stop.
Okay,
I think
I'll
my
just hold
message
up. I held the 1 minute up, and then we'll.
I
go.
kept talking.
No worries. No worries. No problem at all. Just a quick reminder for anybody watching on the chat or live, of course, Q&As are down below. If you have any questions stemming first out of guest message Wanda Lauren's presentation, down there, we will get to them as we go. We're moving into our first, what we'll call a panelist speaker. On my agenda, I'll just make sure both agendas are the same. Yes, we've got from the First Nations and Indigenous perspective, I've got on mine, Dr. Reggie Crowshoe.
Hi, Rob. Dr. Reg is not available at the moment.
Dr. Reg is not available, so we're going to Reverend Nathan?
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Look at that. 10 minutes ahead, and we're only 10 minutes in. Fantastic. See how that works? There we go. From the Baptist Christian perspective, Reverend Nathan Freed. Reverend Nathan Freed is a pastor of the First Baptist Church in Peace River. He has been the pastor for the last 11 years. He is ordained by the Canadian Baptist of Western Canada and has a Master's of Divinity degree from Carey Theological College at the University of British Columbia. He's married to Chelsea and has 3 children. In his spare time, he enjoys hiking, watching his kids snowboard, and a good meal with friends and family. Nathan loves to talk about the difference God has made in his life and how peace with God moves us towards peace with ourselves and others. Of course, always a reminder on the questions. And 10 minutes for Reverend Nathan. Take it away.
Okay, good evening, everyone. It is good to be with all of you. I want to thank the organizers for inviting me back. This is my second time. And I really appreciate the availability to be able to do this evening. So I'm going to jump in here. There's a time that we're in right now seems really fragile. And for all the advances in healthcare and science and technology that's out there, all it takes for the world to come to a standstill is a small, invisible, at least to the eye, virus. And of course, it is a very real virus, and we should be taking it seriously. But that foundation that we thought was so solid, every one of us now sees as shaking. And I think from a Christian's perspective, I'm more interested in what does God have to say about this, and what does he require of me, and how should I as a Christian respond during this time? And of course, there is no book or chapter or verse in the Bible that says this is what you do during a pandemic, this is how you respond to the coronavirus. But I do believe there's lots of great principles in the Bible that can help us during a time like this. And of course, like probably most faiths that are out there, there is a difference of opinions among believers, and with Christians, it's the same. Some Christians like to voice their opinions online and they get really angry. Some are quite peaceful. There's a lot of different responses out there. But the Bible talks a lot about the way that we use our words and what we do when there are times of trouble. And it's very important. The Bible talks about using words that build people up and encourage them and really help them, rather than words that will tear people down and cause division and fighting amongst each other. You know, the results of this pandemic have gone on a lot longer than I think any of us would have anticipated it would. And what started for Christians as a response to love their neighbor, it's one of the great commands of God that we should love him and love our neighbor. I think mostly around the world, Christians have been responding that way, but patience definitely is running thin as the pandemic continues on. One of the writers in the Bible, he's an apostle, his name is Paul, and he was writing in the book of Romans. This is what he says when there are troubles that we will face. He says in Romans 12, to rejoice in hope, to be patient in tribulation, and to be constant in prayer. And so that is one of the things that hopefully I can express during my time this evening, is that there would be a sense of hope and a sense that we do not need to fear during this troubling time. When Christian church leaders, majority anyways, my colleagues in Canada, they have responded to this virus by following the science, by following our political leaders in our province and in our country, and taking their guidelines and taking them seriously. We in Peace River, we have limited our service to 1/3 capacity. And now this afternoon, I heard we're going to have to limit it down to 15% of our normal capacity. And so we will keep doing that at our church. We also follow social distancing guidelines, wearing masks, hand sanitizer, all those things. So I think for the majority of Christians that are out there, they see wisdom, science to help get us through this pandemic. Christians around the world are following these recommendations. And of course, there's nothing in the Bible that says, Christians, you are not allowed to wash your hands or wear a mask or socially distance. So there's nothing that is in opposition from God's word to the science and health guidelines that we're receiving right now. There is one I want to just pick up on briefly, because this is the majority of Christians who have an issue with the restrictions taking place right now. This is the one that they have an issue with. In the book of Hebrews, in the New Testament of the Bible, in chapter 10, verse 25, it tells us to not give up meeting together, as some are in the habit of doing, but to encourage one another all the more as you see the day approaching. And that day, of course, is talking about the return of Jesus Christ and his victorious time there. So that mandate, of course, is a big one in opposition to the restrictions, because the Bible is saying, don't give up meeting together. But of course, the science clearly says to stop the virus, we need to stop gathering. We need to stop meeting. I'm just going to give a little bit of perspective around this. The pandemic, the one we're in right now, isn't the first trouble that Christians have faced around the world, and it definitely will not be the last. Christians since Jesus have faced persecution and torture, illness, different pandemics, starvation, rejection. But over all these centuries now, Christians have held to Jesus Christ as their hope and to each other. So one of the issues with that we have to look at is really for Christians is they see God as the ultimate authority in their life. And I do that as well, even above my premier and my prime minister, who I see God as that ultimate authority in my life. And so Christians struggle with someone putting restrictions in place who maybe they are not familiar with having a sense of leadership or authority in their life, like our Alberta Health Services and our Prime Minister. And so I do believe Christians do continue, though, despite that authority issue in their life, they do continue to see the science as real as a majority of people. And they do want to follow God's word, where he says that we should love him and we should love our neighbor. I'm going to close with this evening, because this is a really important part as a Christian, as a believer who believes God's word, the Bible, is fully true. There is this great theme that runs through the entire Bible, and it's actually one of the most mentioned themes that are there. It's mentioned over 300 times in the Bible, and it's simply to fear not to have fear. And so God tells us over and over again not to be afraid, because we know fear is a crippling motivator. We know that fear is all around our world right now, and fear is different than just listening to the science and taking it seriously. There's a difference between saying, yes, this is a real pandemic, real effects, we do need to take it seriously, but also not wanting to be someone who is caught up in fear. And so I want to close just finally this evening. We treat this global pandemic right now, I think Christians as a whole, and we remember that this is not the first time, once again, we've gone through something like this. In fact, in the first 3 centuries, we can see how Christians were the ones who responded to plagues in the Roman Empire. And even Roman emperors that would come, they would want to get rid of Christians. They saw them as in opposition to their culture and their beliefs. But because the Christians were the first ones to go into the streets to care for those who were sick, the Romans really didn't even have a chance to do anything further with that. And so we see Christians respond through all of history by really instituting healthcare and hospitals all around the world, responding to help the least of these in our community, those who are sick and vulnerable, those who are elderly or widowed. That is the mandate that Jesus has given us. And so I hope that my fellow Christians will, for the many reasons that Jesus has given us for doing so, reject fear, reject panic and self-preservation, And instead, may we be the light that he has equipped us to be in a world that is overcome with darkness. Thank you, each one of you, for listening.
And thank you, Reverend Nathan. Reminder to anybody watching out there in the real world and not actively participating in the panel, there's a Q&A down right there. We can see it pop up if you are watching out there. Up next, we have another guest message from Elder Herman Manyguns. Herman is a direct descendant of Sitting Behind Eagle Tail, head chief of the Piikani Nation, Treaty Number 7, and White Stripped Dog, minor chief of the Blood Nation. Herman was born and raised with great responsibilities to help his people and share the traditional knowledge for future generations. With his strong traditional bloodlines connecting to a Sundance ceremonialist with numerous Blackfoot transferred rights. Today, Herman continues to practice all Blackfoot ceremonies and continues to share his Blackfoot knowledge. He received his education in the state of Montana and served as an elected council member for 6 years with the Piikani Nation. Today, he is called upon within the Piikani Nation, Blackfoot Confederation, and different organizations and schools within Alberta and Montana to share our Blackfoot culture. Up now, Elder Herman Manyguns.
Okay. Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, my name is, my Blackfoot name is Sitting Behind Eagle Tail. That was my great-great-grandfather's Blackfoot name. So today I'm very honored to carry his name forward in this age and time. I was listening to the speakers here today. I'm very honored here to be asked to be part of this conference here, and I'd like to acknowledge all the organizers and the people that are directly involved with this conference here. And it is my very first time, and it seems to be very interesting here. And it seems like we're, from the Blackfoot perspective, it seems like we're saying the same thing. We all have a belief system, and in our culture, we all believe in one maker, it's the Almighty God. And so, and that's what we believe in. We have an oral culture. We never had a written system. So everything that was passed on to us through our spirituality was passed on, and the practices through an oral system. So today, it's those things that come from our history. Today, I'm very honored to continue practicing our language, our customs, and our belief system today. Within our culture here, there's a lot more to it, but with 5 minutes, you can't explain everything else in 5 minutes. But just to give you some maybe insight about our history, we had experienced a lot of pandemics too in our time. Before the arrival of the non-native people in this country, going back as far as Christopher Columbus 500 some years ago, things for us, we had lots of different challenges here in this country. For the Blackfoot people of where we come from, we were hit with the tuberculosis, we were hit with the smallpox. So we were hit with all these pandemics, and it wiped away a lot of our people. But through our culture and our ceremonies and our practices, today we are still here as Blackfoot people. And when I refer to the Blackfoot people, we are within a territory that go as far as the North Saskatchewan River in Edmonton to the highest points of the Rocky Mountains to the west, as far as Saskatchewan, and all the way to the Yellowstone River, all through Montana. That was the Blackfoot territory at one time. So at the time when all these people, there's 4 groups of us. We have the ones that are east of Calgary, Alberta, is called the the Blackfoot tribe. In our language, they're called Siksika. And also near the Canadian border, we have one of the largest Indian tribes is what they call the Blood tribe. Then we have our sisters across the 49th parallel that that are in the state of Montana, and they're called the Blackfeet in Montana. So they are called in our language Skapi Pikani, and here we are as Pikani people, we're called Apatuksi Pikani. But at the signing of this treaty in 1877, we've have our other brothers and sisters with the Satina. We have the Morley Stony people. We have the Chiniki, Wesley, and the Bearspaw. So all those 4, including the 3 Blackfoot, is the that makes up the Treaty 7. But like I say in closing, is that I'm very honored here to talk about things, but the belief system is still there. We've had, like I mentioned, we had quite the trail that we had to follow. Today, with the pandemic that we're faced with, we're still having our ceremonies, and regardless of, we have the faith, so we still get together, and we still have the trust in God that we could overcome this pandemic. So, in closing, I'd like to thank everybody and all the speakers here today, and thank you very much.
Look at that, right exactly 5 minutes on the button. Elder Herman Meniguns, thank you very much. A reminder, anybody out there, we have a lot of people tuning into this, it looks like. If you do have a Q&A based on anybody's presentation or what you've heard, or you had some pre-existing questions, feel free to throw them in the chatter as well. And then we, of course, will moderate them and hand them out come Q&A time after 3 or 4 more speakers. Up next is Christian LDS Perspective, Reverend Ty Barrett. Ty has lived in the Three Creeks area, just northeast of Peace River, since 2015 with his wife and 4 children. He was appointed as the branch president of the Peace River branch of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in November of 2017. Before that, from 2010 to 2012, he served a proselytizing mission in Phoenix, Arizona, where he developed a great love for serving God's children and sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ. He currently works at the CNRL Peace River Complex Thermal Heavy Oil Facility. 10 minutes, Reverend Ty Barrett. Take it away.
Thank you very much, Rob. Well, first of all, I want to say that in short, the answer to the question that I have is that science is not at odds with faith. We've all been experiencing and affected by the pandemic in various ways. Some have, contracted the virus and been very sick, and others have struggled with economy and job loss. And I think all of us have seen massive change. And I think we've also seen how those around us, at least some of those around us, have responded to that change with hate or frustration that causes even more pain and struggle in our lives. There's also the lack of, I guess, at least usual or what we're used to, social interactions that can really affect us. We're a very social people, and with the restrictions and the changes on how we socialize and interact, have had a great effect on I think all of us, and how we feel and navigate our way through these times. That being said, this time of pandemic is really a test or a trial of our faith and how we are going to react, or how we are going to manage that trial. And as I mentioned, it's really just one of many. Even before the pandemic decided to come visit us, we had all kinds of struggles that we worked through personally, as families, as faith groups and churches, as citizens and of communities and of countries. There's always been, and I believe there always will be, struggles and trials and tests of our faith. And the test is how we react and how we respond. We don't always get to control what happens to us. I think we've seen that, especially the last little bit, that each of us are not in control of some of the different restrictions and things that are happening around us. We don't get that control, but we do get to control how we respond. We do get to control our choices and what we choose to do, and how we choose to live our faith. That this is a trial of our faith, and we don't get a witness or evidence of our faith until after we go through our trials. Especially for me, I'm not able often to see the benefits that I get as I go through struggles until I get to look in the mirror, in the rearview mirror, and see how far I've come, and see how the trials of my life and the struggles that I've had have shaped me, and how they've made me a better person as I've made the correct choices and chosen to seek inspiration and revelation from God in order to help direct my path. And then at other times, I've seen how I've not responded well to trials and struggles in my life. And I'm able to see that I didn't grow. Sometimes I've even slipped back in my faith. And the difference is how I've responded to the trial. I can't see or draw a correlation to this type of trial has increased my faith and this other type of trial has caused me to struggle. But really, I can draw that conclusion for how I responded to that trial, and draw that conclusion from how I chose to react to those circumstances. The faith that we have and that we exhibit, it's not to have a perfect knowledge. It's not to be in a position where we know exactly, for example, how this pandemic's going to turn out. That's not faith, but faith is to have a hope for how it's going to turn out, have a hope for how we can all progress and grow through these trials, and remembering that our faith and that hope needs to be centered in things which are true. It needs to be centered in love for one another, and centered to know that we're all children of God, and we're all in this together, and we're all working forward through it. Our faith, it helps to offer a different perspective to the struggles in the pandemic in particular. And it helps us to combat that worry that we feel, that worry about the unknown. We're still going through that worry. We learn about new trials that face us. But I think as we strengthen our faith, we are able to have control over those emotions a little bit more, to have some of that worry go away, and to take some moments to reflect and see the bigger picture. That it's not about the instant we're in right now and the short trial that we have right in front of us, but God's plan for us is much bigger, longer lasting, and that we have the opportunity to grow and to share that love and to help others to feel that faith and to grow themselves. I know that the gratitude, as we express gratitude to those around us, express that gratitude to God, that will help us to gain that perspective. There's a great great tool in sharing gratitude and feeling gratitude and taking the time to be grateful for the things, the blessings that we have, and help us to really important. Our faith, our family, and our communities. That being said, we believe in honoring and sustaining the law and our leaders, that it would be great to say that, well, my faith is strong, so I don't need to follow science, or I don't need to be weighed down by restrictions. But we need to be good citizens. We need to continue to sustain those people, and as tough as that might be. With that said, when we increase our faith, no matter what the situation, as we rely on that, then it takes away our worry, it takes away our fears. And when we are able to not have those emotions bubbling up and gripping us in fear and worry, then we're better able to not only help ourselves and help our families and to show that Christ-like love, but we're also able to help those around us, help them gain hope and faith, and to help them to want to have a better life and a better perspective, and really more joy in their lives. And really, that's what it's about. Growing in our families, becoming more like our Father in heaven, being better and doing that which our Savior Jesus Christ would want us to do, and loving one another and helping each other continue to grow. So thank you very much for letting me share my thoughts.
Awesome. Thank you, Reverend Ty Barrett. Again, a reminder for anybody doing or interested in questions and answers, Q&A is down in front of us, I guess. You're at the bottom. We did have one question, but it was pretty vague, so we're trying to get drill down to a little more specifics for them. But otherwise, we're just going to keep on moving into our next presentation, 10 minutes from the Islamic perspective. Imam Zahid Abid. Zahid Abid is a missionary from Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat. After completing a 7-year program at the Institute for Islamic Studies, he graduated in 2010. He has represented Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat at various events and has spoken at universities and colleges throughout Canada. He has appeared as a guest on numerous occasions on Radio Ahmadiyya, and since his graduation in 2010, he has served in Ghana, the US of A, Saskatoon, Brampton, and is now serving in Calgary, has been for the past few years. Mr. Abid is married and is the father to a 9-year-old daughter. On the 10-minute clock, from the Islamic's perspective, Imam Zahid, Mr. Abid. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rob. Thank you for your kind introduction. Assalamu alaikum. May peace and blessings of Allah be upon you all. In the name of Allah, the gracious, the merciful. In the Holy Quran, there is a verse in chapter 5. I'm reading part of the verse. In Arabic, it reads, وَتَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى وَلَا تَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْإِثْمِ وَالْعُدْوَانِ. And help one another in righteousness and piety, but help not one another in sin and transgression. Today's topic of global pandemic is faith at odds with science. The short and simple answer would be a resounding no, that religion is not at odds with science. Respected audience and distinguished panelists, the message of the Holy Quran is very clear and concise. Believers are commanded that they should help one another in righteousness, meaning the good deeds, and piety, and not help one another in sin and transgression. From this, we can conclude that when any opportunity to do good arises, Muslims are commanded to take that chance of doing good and to not pass it up. This is a universal command, and this pandemic has shown us that it will take all of us working together to get through this. So this verse reflects upon the universality of this teaching, that in the matters of good, we should all work together. And in order to stop a transgression or wrongdoing, we must also work together as a whole humankind. The Holy Prophet of Islam, Muhammad, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, he said that there is no disease that Allah has created except that He has also created its treatment. So we believe that when there is a disease, there is a treatment as well. We may not have it yet, but over time we will find it. So this gives us hope that whenever there is a disease that arises, there will also be a cure that will be found for it. In a tradition, meaning a narration of the Prophet of Islam which has been recorded, he said the example of the person abiding by God's order and restrictions in comparison to those who violate them is like the example of those persons who drew lots for their seats in a boat. Some of them got seats in the upper part and the others in the lower. When the latter needed water, they had to go up to bring water, and that troubled the upper deck passengers. So they said, let us make a hole in our ship, in our share of the ship, and get water, so that we do not trouble the upper deck passengers. If the people in the upper part left the lower deck passengers to do what they had suggested, then all the people of the ship would be destroyed. But if they had prevented them, then both parties would be safe. So this is another story which contains great lessons for us. If we take the boat to be Canada, where we all live, no matter where we are, the upper deck or the lower deck, where we are, whether we are in favor of restrictions or not restrictions, but we must work together. Otherwise, none of us would be able to manage through this pandemic safely. The people, for example, on the upper deck, they should not get tired if people are from the other area coming to them for help. They need the sunshine or the water or whatever their needs are. And the others should not be foolish or selfish, as in the example by putting a hole in the ship because they don't want to come upstairs, up onto the upper deck to get water. So everyone needs to work together in order to reach our destination safely, and it only happens if we all work together. The founder of Islam, he guided us in the matters of plague. He said that if you hear of an outbreak of plague in a land, do not enter it. But if the plague breaks out in a place while you are in it, do not leave that place. Very astute example, very relative to our time and age, wherein it takes great courage to stay in an area where you hear there might be this disease and spreading. To stay there, it takes courage. So he said that it is better you stay there so that you don't spread it to other parts of the land. And a practical example of when this happened after the Prophet of Islam in the time of the second Caliph, who was called Umar ibn al-Khattab, he departed for Syria. And when he reached a town called Sarg, the commanders of the Muslim armies, he was traveling with the army. His name was, the leader of the army said, Abu Ubaidah bin al-Jarrah said, and his companion met him and told him that an epidemic has broken out in Syria. Umar, who had traveled all this way, he said that call for me the early immigrants, those who had come from Mecca to Medina. So Umar called them, consulted them, informed them that an epidemic had broken out in Syria. Those people differed in their opinions. Some of them said, we have come out for a purpose, and we do not think that it is proper to give it up. While others said to Umar, you have along with you other people and companions of Allah's apostle, so we do not advise that we take them to this epidemic. Umar said to them, leave me now. Then he called the Ansar, who were the residents of Medina. He called them and consulted them, and they followed the way of the earlier people and differed in their opinion. And then he called the people of the Quraysh, the earlier people who had migrated with the Prophet of Islam and before him. And he called them and they gave him the counsel that we advise that you should return with the people and do not take them to that place of epidemic. So Umar made an announcement and said that I will ride back to Medina in the morning, so you should do the same. The leader of the Muslim army said to Umar, who was the Caliph and the supreme leader of the Muslims, And the leader of the army said, "Are you running away from what Allah has ordained?" Umar responded, "Would that someone else had said such a thing. O Abu Ubaidah, yes, we are running from what Allah had ordained to what Allah has ordained. Don't you agree that if you had camels that went down a valley having two places, one green and the other dry, you would graze them on the green one only if Allah had ordained that, and you would graze them on the dry one only if Allah had ordained that?" At that time, another companion who was absent previously, he said that I have some knowledge about this. I have heard Allah's apostle saying, if you hear about it, meaning an outbreak in a land, do not go to it. But if plague breaks out in a country where you are staying, do not run away from it. Umar thanked Allah and returned to Medina. So even in this example, we can see that mutual consultation was taken, people were consulted, and a decision was made. And then all were asked to act upon it for the betterment of everyone. There were those who said that we have come for a purpose. For example, if somebody is traveling, he says, "Oh, I have come for a very important meeting, I must attend it." Or this thing is coming, we have all traveled from so far away, we must do it. But that would be something which is selfish, because we could cause the spread of this disease, or if in a term you can want to call it an enemy, which we cannot see, and we do not know whether we are carrying it with us or not. So according to Islam, though there are physical means of treatment and cures, their procurement, development, and effectiveness all stem from God's attribute of being the healer. In essence, the true healing powers of any remedy are not a result of the remedy itself. Rather, the remedy serves as a manifestation of God's attribute of being the healer. An example of this from the life of the second leader of the Ahmadi Muslim Jamaat. One time, he was treating himself for some illness. First, he took traditional medicine from a herbalist, then he took some allopathic medicine, and soon after he took homeopathic medicine. A friend who was sitting close by, who casually asked that, "Huzur," meaning Your Holiness, you have taken all three medications. What is the benefit in that? He replied, "These medicines are simply treatment. They are not God, who knows what will be the cause of restoring my health. Therefore, I have taken all three." So yes, we are hoping that this cure, this vaccine will be developed, but we also hope that this has the effectiveness on the people. It might affect some better and others might be immune to it. You never know. So this is where the faith comes in, that we hope that the precautions and the medications we are taking, it has an effect. So in end, I conclude my presentation with a quote of His Holiness, Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad, may Allah be his helper, the current and fifth leader of the Ahmadi Muslim Jamaat. He said, "There are illnesses which at one point seemed untreatable, yet now their treatment is seen as being very simple. Such progress should not lead one to think that, God forbid, humankind holds an equal share in the sovereignty and attributes of Allah Almighty. In fact, it is the favor of God that He has granted humans such intellect as to discover new treatments, after which God bestows His blessings and cures people through these treatments. Allah Almighty alone is the healer. As the Holy Prophet has said, humans are compassionate. Thus, every researcher who searches for cures to illnesses, every doctor and healer should be compassionate with other human beings and their patients, and they should strive for the betterment of humanity." Thank you very much.
Excellent. And again, 10 minutes right on the button, keeping everything on time and then ahead, as the case may be. Our next perspective and guest message is from Reverend Marilyn Carroll. Reverend Carroll has been serving the United Church congregation since 1989. She has served the church in communities regionally and nationally. She is committed to building relationships among all people. She believes we need to focus on what we have in common and how we can partner for the well-being of all Canadians and creation. Reverend Marilyn Carroll, 10 minutes.
Okay, thank you. And once again, thank you for hosting this event in our region and helping us to get together with neighbors from near and far. So I've lived in Dawson Creek for over 42 years, and That sort of defines a little bit, I suppose, of how I see the world. I'm currently working with the United Church in Dawson Creek and with the Grace Lutheran Church, and we're working on becoming one congregation while maintaining the particulars of each of our traditions. So I believe and expect faith and science to work together for the well-being of all of creation. And yet, even in saying this, we all know that both science and faith have and continue to oppress people and damage creation. I would offer faith as being a relationship with the God of wonder and mystery, and science is about explaining the wonders of the world. So as we learn more about our interconnectedness among all the creatures in creation, science also offers us nurture for that sense of awe and wonder. I do not believe that COVID has been sent as a plague or a test. COVID at this point is part of our environment and is having a huge impact on people around the world, and calls out that part of our faith that's not just personal, but is communal. Faith requires us to consider our situations and see what we need to do. For example, when we look at the world through the lens of COVID, the racism that existed and perhaps we tried to ignore, COVID is highlighting that for us to see. Perhaps we all knew before that our care for the elderly was not adequate, but looking at it through COVID, we see how woefully inadequate our care has been. And then the growing tendency, again, it's not new, but COVID is highlighting it, this growing tendency to not trust and even to dismiss the world of science and scientific method and knowledge. It is disturbing, and COVID, I think, is calling us to address these issues. The relationship, to talk about the relationship between faith and the work of science, and particularly those who study medicine and epidemiology and immunology, the relationship between faith and research. And I think we need to be more intentional about that relationship. John Wesley was a significant teacher in our tradition, and he talked about the 4 pillars of faith being scripture, experience, belief, and reason. I think we need to pick up on our gift of reason. We're expected to use our capacity to reason, to consider the learning of those whose work it is to understand creation. We are expected to use our reason to consider the various points of view that are coming from the scientific community. And we need to work on that self-awareness to know when we're responding from fear and anxiety versus actually taking in and appreciating what science has to offer. And to be aware of that fear and anxiety and know what it is we can work to change and what it is we need to leave to God. We need to use that sense and ability to reason, to sort through all of the experts on Facebook compared to the data that's coming from universities and research centers. And I think when we consider the support needed for healthcare and for people of differing ages and situations to get through the pandemic, we need to be more clear and separate political will from decisions about best practices in this time of the pandemic. Finally, faith requires us to love our neighbor. We have rights, personal rights, and we have responsibilities to ourselves and to our community. COVID has highlighted that trend to make my rights more important than the well-being of my community. No one has been asked to like wearing a mask, but we have the information that wearing a mask is one part of a defense against COVID. As a worshiping congregation, we have not met in person since mid-March. And I have to say, we're not in any rush to return to gathering in our sanctuary. So our building is technically closed, but our church is not closed. We continue to gather online, to worship online, to continue with our outreach work, because our faith calls us to worship and to keep on making a difference in the world. We just shared and prepared and shared a Christmas concert, and after only a few hours, we had 450 hits on that concert. I have to say, we couldn't have got 450 people in our building. And thank goodness for the science that's brought us the internet and videoing and all those people who have the technical skills. We do look forward to the time when we can gather again, when we can worship in person, hug each other, shake hands, sing, and eat together. But for now, we're fine with not doing these things because we want to keep our group and our community healthy. So out of my faith, I will wear a mask. I will not gather with all my family members at once. I will continue to wash my hands, stay home when I feel sick, and try to keep current with research and recommendations. And I will sign up for a vaccine as soon as that opportunity comes my way. And yet, even though this week we're celebrating the news of the vaccines, in the meantime, we need to faithfully work to hold the line against COVID. Faith, hope, and love. These three abide, but the greatest of these is love. Our practice of loving needs to be informed by our faith and spiritual teachings and the very best science that we can have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Reverend Marilyn Carroll. Well under the 10-minute wire, as it were. At this point, we do have some questions in the queue, so to speak, and we've got some, here, just my views changing here on me. We've got one specifically for one panelist that I believe that was being taken care of. But here's one to start with. I guess generally to anybody that would like to, as far as I'm concerned, certainly chime in. We do have about 10 minutes here, so we can try to keep answers to about a minute, and we can get through some of these questions here that aren't too baiting. But here's the first one. What role can faith groups have in helping control the pandemic? Anyone like to jump in there? Away you go.
I will offer, by not meeting in person, we may have a small controlled group, but we are intersecting with each other's circles of family and friends. And so for me, staying away from each other right now is a way to love our neighbors.
Fantastic. Anybody else want to?
I just think there's lots of opportunities right now to share hope in the world and to help people who are maybe fearful, to care for those who are isolated and alone. And maybe that doesn't mean visiting with them, but it might mean bringing them groceries, praying for people who are struggling, praying for people who are sick. There's lots of ways that we can express hope and really step up in our faith during this time. So thank you.
Anyone else on that front? Otherwise, we'll move on to another good question here that I think we've got here. Any other ones? Anyone else on that first question? Okay. Second question then. Are there any positive? Now, again, this is for anybody here that would like to jump in. Are there any positives that any of the panelists can draw from this pandemic? Any positives?
But I believe this gives us an opportunity to make ourselves better, to change. It has certainly brought a change in our routines, where from 9 to 5 we're working, and then we had our whole schedule planned out, and then all of a sudden this break hits and everything is slowed down. So if we want to look at positive, one positive is that it has certainly given us more time to spend with our families, get to know what is actually happening in their life, learn about them. And it has actually created more ways of communication in one way. We are able to connect with each other through these remote opportunities. For example, last year we traveled to the Northwestern Territories, and this was a long trip. We would love to do it again, but at least through this manner we are able to connect. And previously I had never heard of Zoom up till 9 months ago when everything closed down. I did not know what Zoom was. So these kind of things, I believe there are positives, definitely.
Anybody else on that one?
Sorry, Rob, I talked over you there. I'd just like to add a little bit there. You mentioned family and family time, and I think also it's a great opportunity and blessing to grow our faith and worship together as a family. With just our family, I think it adds a different perspective and especially a different opportunity that we have to be leaders in our homes and teach our children specifically about worship on that individual level a little bit more.
Certainly. Anybody else? Otherwise, we'll move on. And yeah, I'd certainly not to chime in too much, but it's certainly groups or individuals. It gives you the chance to us to look inward and certainly reassess, our families immediately, and then certainly ourselves individually as well. Any other questions here? There's a lot that are pretty up in the air here that aren't going to lead anywhere, but let's see what else we have here. I'm gonna modify one that's in the chat here. What role can God or the Creator play in this situation where we are, waiting at least for some kind of vaccine of some efficacy? Where does God or the Creator above, where's the role for that person when we're talking about something like a vaccine, or in this case, a vaccine?
All right, Rob. So this is basically, if you look at it in one way, like if God is merciful, why is this happening? Or if God was all powerful, why not send down a vaccine from the heaven? And this would have been over 9 months ago. So for me, as I explained partly in my presentation, that God has given us the capabilities to deal with these sort of situations. This is the role of God, that He has provided us with faculties. He has not given us anything which is outside of our sort of human capabilities. This is within our capabilities to deal with such phenomena. Therefore, as a believer, I look at it in this way, that God has provided us with the means to deal with this, and He has provided us with the intellect, and now with the technology and the science, and the people who have studied science, for them to be able to come together and work on it and come for a cure. So I believe this is how God has worked previously as well. I do not believe in, like, there's a question about miracles, that miraculously being saved. A person came to the Prophet of Islam. He said, he left his camel outside, and the Prophet said, "Did you tie your camel?" And the Prophet responded that, no, he said that I believe in God. I put my trust in God, and my camel is fine outside. He said, no, first tie your camel, then put your trust in God. Meaning, first we have to use our human capabilities, and then we can say, oh, we did not have it, but we do have it. And hopefully soon, people will start receiving these vaccines as well.
Excellent. Here's another one, very good one. Again, for anybody that would like to take it, are there any congregants in your individual faith communities that you would say are at odds with science, and how do you deal with them, and not deal with them, but how do you guide them as your, well, as the leader of your congregation?
I'll speak to that one. I think our church, I wouldn't say is divided, but there's a sense of strong opinions on both sides of this issue. And as a leader of the church with the other leaders that I partner with, we really see unity as being really important. And so we're not trying to bring further division by picking a side or not. We're just saying, hey, has any of these restrictions or health guidelines gone against God's word, which we see as his ultimate authority? And we can't honestly say that they have, beyond the not gathering together part, but we're being creative in that area to meet on Zoom and online and other ways. But, you know, God, right from the beginning, when he saw the world, when Adam and Eve entered into the world and they sinned, he's been on a mission to restore creation where there would be no sickness, where there would be no disease, where there'd be no, you know, the earth getting destroyed by pollution and things like that. God's been on a mission, and that's why he sent Jesus, so that he could point us to a greater reality that God is in heaven, he's in control, and he is working towards fixing all the brokenness in the world. So as our church, we want to be unified, even though there's differences of opinions on it. And the stance we've been taking is just following the guidelines to the best of our ability at this time.
So I would, controversy is not new to the church. So this particular time, we have people for whom fear has become a bit of a dominant emotion and world and way that they're looking and responding to most situations. And so from my perspective as the leader, it's always about people feeling like they're heard and valued, and that there is room for them within the circle, even though they may not share the same views as others. So always, I guess, just giving people that sense of belonging and value.
Anybody else on that question? Otherwise, unless we have any new ones, I think we've got 3 or 4 of the relatively the same theme kind of question. Beyond that, absolutely. Then we've gone almost 10 minutes on the questions, and we're still ahead of our schedule of events. So unless there are any concluding remarks from anybody in the panel here, we do have some time. I'll just make sure there's no more questions enrolling. No. So if anybody else doesn't have any kind of concluding remarks, I'll just simply make to mine and then throw to the president at the end here. Does anybody have anything to say before we do that?
I will just observe, Rob, that again, I see there are 55 participants, and at the events we've had in Dawson Creek, there's never been a crowd like that. So technology, COVID, whatever, we much larger response tonight.
There we have it.
Hi, Rob.
Yep.
Before you conclude, because I'm looking at the YouTube feed as well, there is a question here, and
Okay.
I will just read it out to you, and you can pose it to any of the participants. It reads that, how can we reconcile human suffering from COVID-19 and the existence of God?
Anybody want to take that one? It is generally in the same realm of some of the ones we do have in the chatter here. If God is great, why do bad things happen? Anybody on that one that'd like to take it?
I'll jump in. That's a massive question. Thank you for asking that, though. That's a great question to ask. And one of the biggest ones that prevents people from coming to faith in God is why would he allow suffering in this world? But the reality is God, and he is the creator, and he is in control. And he had created something incredible with the world we live in, the universe, humanity itself. And he didn't desire that sin would enter into the world, but it did through the enemy, and everything has been corrupted. And the Bible says that all creation is groaning. There's something that's not quite right. And I think every one of us would agree. We sense something's not quite right in the world. But that's why as Christians, we believe Jesus, as God's son, is so important, because he came to defeat death and to make a way for us to eternal life. So even the worst things that happen in this life, and Jesus never promises that it will be easy, that we will be wealthy, that we will be healthy, that we'll have everything together. That's a false gospel. But he does promise us, actually, in this world, we will have troubles. But there is one who has overcome troubles, and that's him. And so when we place our hope and faith in him, our eternity is secure. And so for me, as I look at this moment, this is a momentary struggle. And I feel for all the people who have been impacted, people who have lost loved ones, businesses that have closed down. It's heartbreaking to hear those things. But at the same time, this is a moment in history. God is still God in heaven on the throne. He's in control. And that's why I continue to place my trust in someone who is bigger than I am. So great question. I could talk about that for a long time, but thank you for asking that.
Anyone else on this question? Otherwise, we'll move into concluding remarks if nobody else would like to take that one.
I'll share a quick thought that I think also specifically this pandemic and other sicknesses and other bad things that happen in the world, they have an opportunity for us to be humbled by them. And when we are humbled, we have a more affinity for God, and we have a more of a desire to grow our relationship with him and with our Lord. And yes, there's struggles, and they are bad things. But I think we need to work to remember that sometimes we need to be humbled in order to see where we should place our trust. And at times it can be big and really, really hurt, but it will guide us to placing our trust in God and to remember him, and that we are his children, and that we should be placing our trust in him and relying on him and his mercy and his love.
Thank you. If that kind of wraps it up, and I don't see any more questions on my, oh, wait a minute, a couple more here. Oh, Marco's got a couple that are, if you want to get in there on the typing, you can line them up. Otherwise, they're going to turn into longer form answers. And as we are officially hitting our end of the hour and a half here, we'll just go into some concluding remarks, and then I'll throw it to the president. Yeah, I mean, again, this is certainly my second of the annual conferences here. It's always a fantastic event, and then like I said in the beginning, last year was a great social gathering and exchange of ideas and thoughts, and we're in a different time now, and that does bring us to how we are here with science. Here we are in our little boxes communicating through science about faith. So it's these two things are not completely at odds at all. They're completely not at odds. And it was mentioned a few times about the fear of the unknown, and the fear of the unknown is only resolved with a few tools, and two of them are faith and science. Faith and science, and obviously we have to have faith in science and in the science of faith. But that's all I have to say. So we'll turn it over to some concluding remarks from Sultan Mahmoud, president of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat in Calgary. Thank you.
Good evening and Assalamu alaikum. I am not Sultan Mahmoud, I'm just representing him. So on behalf of Sultan Mahmoud, who is the president of Ahmadiyya Muslim Community Calgary, and then the organizers of this World Religions Conference, the first virtual conference for Northern Alberta and Dawson Creek, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to Rob Brown for moderating this event, taking time this evening and joining us and keeping us on time to probably maybe this is one of the first few times we are almost way ahead of our time. So we really appreciate that. We also want to thank all our panelists, and I'm going to just mention the name just once more time. Reverend Carol and Imam Zahid Abid, Ty Barrett, Wanda Lauren, and Reverend Nathan Fried. And then our elder Herman Menigans. We really appreciate you taking time this evening and joining us and sharing on the topic. We are also very grateful to our participants. We have a lot of them. We have those that are watching on Zoom. We had at one point about 60 participants on Zoom, and then we had at one point about 80 people also watching on YouTube, which in a sense, when we organize these conferences in person, as Rob alluded to, we never had that many. So that is we are very grateful to all of you for joining us. Now, the last but not the least, as people of faith, and then as we all recognize from the discussions, from the question and answers that went on, the answer to the question that was asked is science at odds, is faith at odds with science, or if you flip it the other way, the answer is resounding no, regardless of however you look at it. So then what do we do? So if faith is not at odds with science, then what we all need to do as people of faith is that we have to band together and then make sure we support the effort in containing the pandemic. So what we can also do as people of faith, regardless, we have to follow all the scientific guidelines and then the advice of the public health office that they give to us all the time. But then we also have to always resort to God in prayer for the final answer. To this end, to conclude this program, what we will do is we will have 1 minute silent prayer, and we will pray for our first responders. We will pray for all those people that have been touched by the COVID pandemic. We will pray for all the afflicted. So we as Muslims, we pray, we raise our hands in a prayer. You are free to pray in any way, any form, any shape that you pray to your creator. So we will do that. So for this, I will request Imam Zahid Abid to lead us in 1 minute silent prayer to conclude the program.
Thank you very much. Please join me in silent prayer. Amen.
Amen. So with this, we say very much thank you to everyone, and we hope we will be able to meet in person and have this conference in person next year. Good evening. Bye-bye.
Good night.